and a lot of people believe that the announcement has to do with virtual reality as well, that they're going to come out with their VR headset and compete directly with Facebook, and that's going to take that whole competition to another level. So really, all these developments are significant, I think, in terms of understanding the global landscape. If I were you right now, this is not investing advice, but I would really be investing in the future. The future meaning just sort of sitting back and thinking about all the things that are going to be relevant 10 years from now that are not relevant right now. When you think about, for example, things like AI, robotics, electric vehicles, and AI is going to kind of affect everything. So I really kind of think that AI is probably the most interesting and exciting thing to happen in the last 20 years or so, and since the internet kind of became a big thing. And so just so you know, in case you don't know, if you go to boycewatkins.com, there's a list of AI stocks that I really like, that I personally am investing in order to kind of just sit back and benefit from the future. All right. So anyway, with that being said, here are some things going on with the stock market right now. Basically, the stock market is not moving a lot today, and it's sort of waiting for the inflation numbers. The inflation numbers are a big deal because that's going to determine whether or not the Federal Reserve's rate hiking policies have made a difference or not. The big concern is that there is sort of creeping that we're on kind of thin ice, possibly from an economic standpoint, and the thin ice comes from two key sources. One is corporate earnings. A lot of people believe corporations are going to start reporting bad numbers as it pertains to their future income stream. So it's not as corporate numbers come out, it's not just what they made this quarter, what they made this year. It's really what they call their guidance. Guidance is what is expected to happen over the next year or so. And so a lot of experts are predicting that corporations are going to start reporting numbers that are a little bit negative, a little bit toxic, a little bit scary, and that this could lead to a dip in stock prices. You can actually have a double dip kind of recession scenario popping off. The other area of thin ice right now is banking. A lot of people are wondering whether or not the banking system is secure or if it's not. And what this is leading to is conversations about other forms of hedges that you can invest in, like gold. The price of gold has done really well the last 5 years. It's been a really good investment. And also Bitcoin. Bitcoin has now passed $30,000. I believe Bitcoin is a good long-term investment. I'm consistently acquiring Bitcoin over time, just to kind of get ready for when the economy changes. When the economy changes and people feel safe again, you're going to go into what is called a risk-on environment, where people will start taking more risk, and as they take more risk, they're going to start pouring more money into things like Bitcoin and stuff like that. Gold, I'm not so sure about. I understand the argument for buying gold as to prepare for possible economic problems in the future. But I feel like the price of gold has been pumped up so much by the crisis in the banking system that I actually did the opposite. Instead of buying gold, I actually bought some put options on gold. Put options on an ETF connected to gold. So I believe the price of gold is going to go down. That's the investment I've made over the last, over the next, say, 6 to 9 months. Because I think the price of gold has been pushed up a little bit more than it needs to be. But I could be wrong. Again, no investment is 100% certain, but that's one of the things that I have done in order to adjust to this economy. Now let's hop in, and feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section. If you put it in the chat, I may not see it, but put it in the Q&A section and I will answer your questions there. All right. So right now, as I mentioned, the inflation report is kind of a big deal. That will tell you if the Federal Reserve's rate hiking has actually had a good impact on the economy, strong enough impact that they can actually slow it down. Right now, they're afraid of pushing too hard because they don't want the economy to break. The problems in the banking system have made them somewhat worried. I also am wondering if what's going to happen in terms of some of the global developments, like things like the price of oil and stuff like that. I know OPEC is sort of trying to control supply to bring the price back up. I don't know how much that's working though, because oil, there's we got plenty of oil in the United States in terms of our supply. They said also further, Wall Street is heading toward another season of earnings announcements, with several major U.S. banks scheduled to release their earnings reports for the first time since the series of bank crises in March. JP Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup are expected to report Friday. Quote, I think this earnings season will be interesting, especially with big financial institutions and how they are looking at current threats, given the failures that we had last month, but also lending standards that were already tightening beforehand. Let's see here. They have a couple remarks here about information technology stocks, but we're not going to talk about that so much. Let me back up again and take a look at something else that I saw that was really interesting. Let's see here. Okay, so I did see an interesting article about whether or not Tesla is a good buy, and because Tesla shares are up over 70% this year. Now, there's one market pro that's bullish, but there's another they say that's not convinced. So Tesla's kind of a funny stock because it's sort of you have people that either believe in it and love it, or people that just think it's a bunch of crap, that it's overpriced. And so they said shares of electric vehicle giant Tesla have risen more than 70% this year after falling 65% in 2022. Investors have flocked to the EV darling with rising appetite for growth stocks and signs of a rebound in EV demand. But competition is getting stiffer, and there's the prospect of further price cuts. So is it time to buy the stock? Well, Ross Gerber, the president and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Management, he's a Tesla bull. He says Tesla is the undisputed leader in the world globally in sustainable transportation and energy. When you look at a company whose full focus is advancing sustainable transportation and energy, Tesla's technology is so far advanced, and I'm just talking about the technology around EVs and not even talking about self-driving technology, but just the technology that they've built so far is so far advanced that their moat is so deep that they will be a leader hopefully for a decade or more to come. Gerber added that Tesla is already producing more EVs than any other automaker in the world, save for BYD, and it's only at the beginning of a massive shift from oil-based infrastructure. Gerber is excited about the prospect of Tesla's first pickup truck, the Cybertruck. He named unrelenting pressure on margins as one such downside. Given the stiff competition in the EV industry, Tesla cannot be the EV leader without cutting prices. Okay, so let me look at the bear case. Tesla's first quarter vehicle deliveries may have fallen short of Wall Street expectations, but they represent an improvement from the previous quarter and were in line with the company's own guidance. But according to Baidu, it's not enough that companies like Tesla merely meet expectations. That's simply not enough to get them forward. That's not a strategy for the long term. That's just getting a run in the short term, right? That doesn't tell me anything about what they're going to do next year. Okay, so let me keep going. You have this wonderful opportunity to invest long-term in an extremely unique company that is a leader in their industry and in many different segments of technology, he said. And because it's an extremely volatile investment, they should dollar cost average into the company and they will be best served in the long term. Okay, so it seems to me, I was looking for the bearish case, but I didn't really find much bear conversations here. It seems like everything's pretty bullish. I would say that the thing that you could pick up on here is that companies like Tesla that have a lot of volatility, have a lot of volatility create a lot of opportunities. And that's because in a way, it's like an emotional stock in the sense that when the stock price drops or it has a bad day, that's your opportunity to go ahead and pick up more shares at a lower price. If you really believe in that company and you really think that they're the wave of the future, you look at some of the stocks we talked about in the Prime program, drboyceprime.com if you want to learn more about it. But some of those stocks that we've talked about where you're generating this income from selling the stock options, if you notice, these stocks just have complete temper tantrums and they go up and down, up and down, up and down. You have a company like a firm that is a consistent moneymaker. I've been making income from these stocks for many, many years now. I've seen a firm climb as high as 30. I've seen it drop as low as 11. And if you believe that the company is going to survive and you believe that they're going to simply ride the wave and start to improve when the economy improves, then when the stock has a bad week, you can go pick up more shares. Or another company that I really like for income generation is Coinbase. And I've just stuck with Coinbase for a long time. And I've seen Coinbase go as high as 70 or 80. I've seen it go as low as 35. So when it drops, I just pick up more shares, right? So ultimately what they're saying is that with Tesla, if you like Tesla as a company and you want it in your portfolio, dollar cost averaging is a good way to go because that it's got so much chaos and volatility that you have so many great opportunities to get it on the stock at a good price. Whereas a company like Apple or Microsoft is a little more stable. And it's harder to sort of sneak in and buy it for a price that's significantly less than what it's going to be worth a week from now. Now, what else is here? Actually, you know what? I'm going to go into the Q&A section and answer some of your questions. Okay, Arrow says, what's the general relationship between the stock price and its option market value? Well, options are what they call a derivative security. So a derivative is something that derives its value from the original parent, almost like a child derives its characteristics from its parent, but it's not the same as its parent. Like like the rapper T.I., I saw he has a son that looks just like him, but he's not a rapper. He does country music. So it was really weird to see T.I. doing, singing a country song, right? So his son derives from him, but he's not the exact same. But he's got, the same swag, the same, some of a lot the same facial characteristics, everything else. But he's a country music singer, literally. I'm not kidding. And so an option can move in a way that almost appears to be disconnected from the stock, but it's always tethered to the stock on some level, right? So effectively, what an option does is if the stock price, if it's a call option, which basically gives you the right to buy the stock at a certain price, if the stock price goes up, call options tend to go up. Now, how much they go up depends on whether it's a shorter term option or a longer term option. It depends on what the strike price is. Strike price is the price where the option actually can be activated, right? All this is laid out. If you go to stockoptionsmasterclass.com, there's a whole masterclass I put together if you want to learn options. It's stockoptionsmasterclass.com. So feel free to do that. But basically, all the call options are going to go up. So if you think about all the options on the stock as like kids from a parent, right? You have a parent that has 5 kids. All 5 of these kids look like their parents. They look like their mother and look like their father, right? If they have the same 2 parents, right? But all of them are going to be different. All of them are going to react, in their own way, right? The oldest, if something happens, if the mother does something, the oldest might react differently from the youngest, but they're all kind of reacting to what their mother does, right? Or what their father does. So effectively, options are the same way, right? 2 things that matter in an option are the strike price and the time to maturity, the amount of time the option is going to be in existence. So you might have one option that has a shorter time to maturity with a lower strike price. That's going to have a different reaction than an option with a higher strike price that has a longer time to maturity. They're both going to move up if the stock moves up, if they're both call options, but they're going to move up by different amounts. Whereas put options kind of go in the other direction. So in a way, you can almost think about call options like these are all the boys, like a mom has 5 boys and 5 girls, right? So the put options are the girls. So maybe the girls all have some things that they have in common. They all kind of react the same way to whatever happens in the household, but they're going to react differently from the boys. Right. And then also each girl has her own response that is unique to her specifically. Right. So ultimately, that's kind of the connection. So ultimately, what people tend to buy options for is either to speculate. They want to get a piece of the action. They want to sort of own a share of the stock without actually buying the stock. They want to own some sort of asset that's going to move with the stock. Right. But it doesn't cost them as much. So a share of stock might cost you $100. An option on that stock might cost you $10. Right. So the other reason that you buy options is if you want to protect your portfolio. So you have a stock and you're worried that the price is going to go down, where you can buy put options that will protect you in case the price goes down. All right. So let's see here. Let's see. What did you say? Did you say buy UAI? Asked Kim from Cincy. No, I actually didn't. I don't recall saying that. So sorry about that, Kim. No, I didn't actually point out that particular stock. right, let me see here. What does the Twitter move by Elon do for its stock, and will the ticker change? Twitter is not publicly traded right now. Twitter is off the market. When Elon bought Twitter, he married that company and pretty much took it off the market. You can't buy Twitter stock right now. At some point, they may go public again in order to raise money. But I think his long-term plan is to fix the company up, make it better, and then take it public again. And then everyone bids and they buy the company back from him for $80 billion, and he makes another $30-40 billion that he gets to add to his fortune. Rarick says, how does the job number affect what the Fed's going to do moving forward? If the job numbers are strong, that's bad news for the Fed, meaning that they're going to increase interest rates even more than before. It's kind of a weird paradox. It's unfortunate that it's like this, but the Federal Reserve wants unemployment to get higher, which is so sad, right? They kind of want, they're not happy when people when everybody has a job. They're kind of like, no, this economy isn't going to work if the economy is overheated. So an economy that's a little too good is literally going to cause them to do even more to slow the economy down. Because when an economy is doing extremely well and gets overheated, that's when you have a problem with inflation. So it's kind of like pick your poison. You either want a weak economy with very little inflation, or you want a strong economy that's got too much inflation. And because think about this, right? If the economy is doing great and everybody has a job, what good does that do if the cost of living is going up by 25% every year? And the paradox of inflation that's really kind of sad for society is that inflation ends up hurting working class people more than anybody else. And the reason it hurts working class people is because there are dynamics in the labor market that where a company could be facing inflation, right? They could be facing higher costs of supplies, and they could pass maybe some of that cost on to the consumer. And there's something weird where the worker kind of gets passed over in all this. And what do I mean by that? It means like everything's going up in price. Everything that you're buying is going up. The cost of rent's going up, but your wages don't go up with the cost of rent or with the cost of groceries or with the cost of all the things you need in order to live, right? So effectively, there's something about an imbalance in the economy where workers just have lost so much of their power because labor unions went away and all this other stuff. And this is all deliberate. They killed off the labor unions so the capitalists can make the most money. And so the people that end up benefiting from inflation tend to be people who own assets. And in fact, one of the strongest forms of inflation is asset inflation. Also, you've noticed there's been tremendous inflation in things like the cost of college tuition. So universities are benefiting from inflation as well. Whereas workers, if you look at workers' wages, it would be one thing if, inflation was 12% and everybody's pay went up 12%, but that doesn't happen. You'll see the cost of living go up 12%, and then workers' wages will go up 1% or 2%. Well, how are workers supposed to keep up with that? Well, the way they're keeping up with that is they're going deeper and deeper in debt. That's why you have a crisis with student loans. You also have crises with other forms of debt that people are taking on, credit card debt, all that stuff. And eventually it's going to crack. Like eventually people are going to start getting mad at capitalism, which they should to some extent, because capitalism is just kind of, I'm not a capitalist. I'm not, even if you look at the principles of Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street was not built on Black capitalism. There are people who use that term. Black Wall Street was not built on Black capitalism. Black Wall Street was built on cooperative economics. It was built on Black powernomics. O.W. Gurley had economic rules that were not capitalist rules. They were rules built on, saying, look, make your money, be successful, but we're here to take care of each other. We're here to help each other out. And capitalism just isn't built that way. Capitalism kind of leads to a lot of exploitation and a lot of significant harm to workers. It creates a lot of poverty. Also, capitalism, as it's done in America, it leads to even health problems. My wife had me listening to this audiobook this week. My wife reads a lot of books, and that's a gift and a curse. And so she had this audiobook on health that she was going through, and she had me listen to it. And the guy was basically saying that little interesting facts, like he said the average weight of a man in the 1970s was 170 pounds. He said now the average man weighs well over 200 pounds. He said back in the 70s, if you weighed over 200 pounds, they would consider that to be a problem. Like that's a health risk. Now it's just normal. Everybody does. Everybody's fat. Everybody's obese. And he also talked about how there's so much, what was it? I think he said one in the 1940s and 50s, 1 out of every 300 people had diabetes. Now, I want you to answer me. Give me a yes in the chat. How many of you have a loved one who has diabetes? How many of you are either you are diabetic or somebody in your family has diabetes? He said it went from 1 in 300 to like 1 in 9 now. It's like literally like 1 in 9 or something. And I think he was talking about over a certain age, over the age of 40 or something like that, right? Diabetes is everywhere, especially in the Black community. It's just everywhere. And a lot of that's from capitalism. It comes from corporations that just make their money selling any old kind of food that, will taste good. And it's literally like absolutely positively killing you. And then he explained some stuff that Black people need to know, like how diabetes, he said diabetes is the gateway illness that opens the door for all the other things that kill you, like heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, dementia, all these other things. He said diabetes is kind of the beginning of that. Right. And so that really made me think, my God, like, look at all this sugar that we're taking in and all this processed food and everything else. And I've seen it it's all over my family. Like if people dying left and right, especially after about 65, 70 years old, it just gets terrible. Right. And a lot of this comes from the capitalist commitment to selling food that tastes good, that people will buy, and not even considering the health benefits, because your government officials are controlled by the capitalists. So that's just a thought I'm sharing with you. I hope that it is helpful to you. I don't want to sound preachy about it, but I really, I can just tell you in my own journey, I've really said, gosh, I really need to make health like a number one priority. It can't be like just something that you do sort of in your spare time. Like this idea, like he literally said that the problems that we have now is that we are now trained to eat more, sleep less, and exercise less. So we're sitting around doing nothing. We're not sleeping as much as we should. We're eating more food and we're eating horrible food. So you're basically building cancer inside your body, like all these cancers. And that's what it was. He said diabetes directly funnels right into cancer, heart disease, and everything else. And if you've ever seen it, if you've ever sat and watched your parents or grandparents just go through it, that's a motivator to say, okay, we got to change this, right? So just think about it. Just a thought, guys. I hope it's okay if I share that. All right. So anyway, let me keep going. Let's see. Rarick says, how do you feel about semi-cap equipment stock? You know what? Semi-cap. Can you give me the ticker? Is that the company's called Semi-cap? Semi-cap equipment. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, also you can leave your stock question and I can look up a stock for you. So I can try to look it up today. I'm gonna write it down. If I can't look it up today, I will look it up for next week. So just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com. You can leave the question right in there. Also on Thursday is when we start the live stock options masterclass. It's going to be 4 weeks. So if you'd like to join, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. I'm going to move the first class a day or two because my father has a medical procedure related to the health stuff that I've been talking to you guys about. And I've got to actually go deal with that. So I may have to move the first training, but we're still going to do it. I'll probably move it to Saturday. So as an FYI. But if you'd like to join us, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. All right, so let's see here. Gwen says, Tesla is so personality-based and seems more driven by Musk's image than almost anything else. Yeah, I do agree. I agree, Gwen. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of owning Tesla, because, if Elon Musk gets arrested or slips in the bathtub or whatever, then that's going to plummet the stock price. And the thing is that if you watch, I don't know if anybody watches this show called Succession on, I think it's on HBO, and on Succession, they have this character called Logan Roy, who's like this billionaire who everybody's afraid of, who's kind of like the main character on the show. And Logan dies, and he dies on an airplane. And while he's in midair, all of his attorneys and team members are trying to figure out, how do we get this information to the public without destroying the stock price? Because he's such a towering figure that they know that when the public finds out that he dies, the stock price is instantly going to tank. And that's kind of what Tesla is running into, because Elon Musk, he's not an old man, but he's not a young man. He works his butt off. He could die any day. There's no telling, where his health is. He drinks, I think he said he drinks a bunch of Cokes he drinks like, 6 Diet Cokes a day or something. That can't be healthy. So there's no telling like where that's gonna, lead from Musk long term. So I agree with you 100%. But I think also at the same time, remember that when you buy a stock, you can also protect it by buying put options, things like that. So you can protect yourself against the downside. So don't feel like I wouldn't get caught up in one stock to the point where you think that one stock can just save you and change your life. That's not the way to invest. You want to invest in different companies anyway. But also, if you do invest in a company that really worries you, you can hedge that risk. You can protect yourself by getting some insurance by buying a put option. All right. So let me see. Let me hop into the next question. What is the VIX? The VIX is what they call the fear index, and it measures basically how nervous investors are. So basically, if you were to look up the definition of the VIX, I'm gonna read this to you. It says it's a ticker symbol and the popular name for the Chicago Board of Options Exchange Volatility Index, a popular measure of the stock market's expectation of volatility based on S&P 500 index options. What does that mean? Well, basically, it's sort of like when you have movies where horses start running because the thunderstorm is coming, or horses and dogs can sense a tornado's coming. Well, the VIX is kind of the same way. It's the investor's perception of the coming storm. What do they think that is going to happen in the market? Do they feel like volatility is on the horizon? Are they really worried, etc.? So the VIX kind of lets you know how people are feeling. It lets you know how, because remember, with risk is a funny thing. There is real risk, there's perceived risk, and then there's risk where you don't even know that there's a risk. So real risk might be, I don't know, my hometown of Louisville, there was a big mass shooting, right? So real risk could be me checking on my loved ones in Louisville, which I did to make sure they were okay because there was a shooting that happened in Louisville, right? That's real. There's a real reason for me to do that. Perceived risk is my mother-in-law. We went to Hawaii. We begged our mother-in-law to come with us. She won't go because she thinks planes are going to crash. She thinks that any plane she gets on is going to fall out of the sky. It doesn't matter that I can show her data that says, look, a plane crash hasn't happened for years in the United States. Like, there's no planes anywhere you can find that are commercial airlines that are just falling out of the sky. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You could tell her that driving is more dangerous than flying. It doesn't matter. She just, in her mind, has decided that flying will kill her. So there's nothing I can do, right? Now, a risk that you're not aware of, that you should be aware of, is kind of like the risk that FTX is going to go bankrupt because Sam Bankman-Fried is taking people's money and doing things with it he shouldn't be doing. That was what is called a black swan event. That's something you just didn't expect, because Sam Bankman-Fried was, a year and a half ago, I guess, maybe even a year ago, one of the most trusted names in all of finance. Like, his name was starting to become like a Charles Schwab or an E.F. Hutton. He was seen as the savior of the crypto space. So to have somebody go from being the savior to being the devil is just shocking, absolutely shocking. It's even more shocking than watching the fall of Bill Cosby, who went from America's dad to whatever people see him as now, right? So ultimately, when you think about risk, you think about it that way. So the VIX measures the perception of risk, and the perception may not always equal the reality. Right. So sometimes investors are scared and they don't have a reason to be scared, and sometimes they're not scared when they should be scared. In 2020, experts were scared. People like me were very scared. We said, oh my God, stocks are going way up and people are making money overnight, and it is not going to stay this way. Right. But at that time, nobody else was scared. The market wasn't scared. People were investing in anything. They would buy any kind of crappy crypto that anybody was offering, right? So this was kind of the mood at that time. And so the VIX is a measure of the perception of risk, but not always the reality. All right. Now, one of the things I want to mention too is something that I wanted to talk to you guys about, that I saw in an article I read, where they were talking about how people in my generation, Generation X, are not saving for retirement properly and not saving money in general, depleting their savings because we're taking care of adult children. And they said this is significant. They said a large percentage of Generation Xers have 20-something-year-old kids that are living in their house or maybe they're not living in their house, but they're taking care of these kids. And what that's doing is that is depleting your ability to save for your own future. Most Americans are not prepared for retirement. I have no idea what a lot of people are going to do, because when you get 75 years old, you don't want to get up and go to work every day. But I guess people think they're going to work until they die. I have no idea what the plan is. So one of the things I wanted to mention really quickly is that that there are ways to prevent this. I actually, in my book, the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I talk about that actually in terms of how you set that economic standard in your family and how you sort of train your children when it comes to their own economic intelligence and the expectation of how they're supposed to show up as members of the family. So one rule that I strongly believe in, that I try to practice with my own children, is that nobody should show up as a liability or a burden to other people on a regular basis. The only people that can be a consistent liability to others in this family are people who are elderly, children, or disabled. If you're elderly or you're a child or you're disabled, then all bets are off. People have to show up and make sure that you're okay, and that's the way the world works. But if you are 26 years old and you are a healthy young man, there's always something that you can do. And if you are behaving as a disabled person where you're not helping the family and you're a burden on the family, that could be because someone disabled you. Maybe your mother disabled you because she's babying you, into adulthood, or maybe your father disabled you or whatever. But either way, what you have to understand is that you have to think about your family's economic viability as an entity, or almost like a plant that you have to water, or an animal that you have to feed. And if you are not able to feed and pour into this thing, then this thing is not going to grow. It's not going to survive. It's eventually going to be depleted. It's going to die. So everybody that's showing up in the family, think about it like gathering for a family picnic or something, or a family reunion. If everybody shows up and they're expecting to eat, but nobody brings any food, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What if everybody shows up ready to eat and not one single person brings a plate? Nobody brings food. Nobody brings money. Everybody shows up with their hand out. Is that going to work? Is that family picnic going to even survive or even occur? It can't happen, right? So what happens when some people show up with their hand out and they're expecting to eat, but they're not bringing a plate, right? Well, that means just mathematically that in order for me to eat and I brought nothing, someone else is going to have to bring more food than they actually eat themselves. Somebody's going to have to feed me, basically. Somebody's going to have to take up the burden that I've put on the group to feed me, even though I brought no food to feed anybody else, right? So that's a mindset, right? And ultimately, the rule that I have in our family is everybody contributes. Everybody can do something. If you have any extra income, you can do something. If you have any extra free time, you can do something. So if you're in the house and you're not a child, you're not a senior citizen, and you're not disabled, the question becomes, what are you going to do to make sure this family as an entity is going to benefit from the fact that you're here? What are you bringing you're showing up to the picnic, you must bring a plate. You must do something. So that means if you can't contribute financially, then can you sweep the floor? Can you cut the grass? Can you take out the trash? Can you drive the kids around? Like what is it that you have to do? And this is a conversation we had to have with our oldest son. He came home. He's over the age of 18, and I just said, look, man, you could be here, but you're not a child. So you're going to have to contribute to this household. So I said, you're going to work for me. I'll pay you. I'm going to take a certain amount of money out for rent. And when he complained, I said, well, okay, this is a few $100s a month. I want you to go out and see if you can find you an apartment for $600 a month. Good luck with that. I hope. Let me show me what kind of apartment you can get for $600 a month. Um, then there's also, and then we talked about some other things he could do, right? And so what I said to him, what I explained was, I said, the adult child living in the house is not the problem. The problem is the perspective that you have about that adult child living in the house. So if the adult is living in the house and they're contributing nothing, but they're taking things, right? They're taking food, they're taking resources, then that person becomes a burden. They are a liability. But if their mindset shifts and they say, okay, let me see what I can do. You know what? I only make $2,000 a month, but I'll give you $500 a month. Well, that makes a difference. Now, mama can pay she can pay a light bill, the cable bill, maybe a car note with this money. So now she sees you as a liability, or excuse me, as an asset and not a liability, right? And now you being in the house is a net benefit to the house, right? You're not feeling like, okay, I got to get this person out of here because they're a freeloader and I can't carry around all these people. I remember hearing my father have a really hard conversation with a relative when I was a little kid. And what was going on was, you had a relative that was calling our house for money. I'm not gonna say which one it is because I got family members that sometimes hear what, things I talk about. And they were asking for money. And he said, wait a minute, you're asking me to help you pay the bills, but you got 3 grown men living in that house. He said, I will not chip in one single penny to pay any of those bills until you either move them all out of the house or they all chip in on some level as well. They chip in an equal amount because there's no excuse for you to have 3 grown men in the house that are not contributing to paying the bills. Because if all those guys got together and said, we're all going to give $500 a piece, everybody wins. Suddenly, mama's got $2,500 a month or $2,000 a month to help get things paid for, and you got a place to live for just $500. So everybody can win. So this whole phenomenon of parents sort of not being able to save for retirement because they're taking care of adult children, or they can't save, and because they've got this 30-year-old who can't get it together. I don't think it has to be all or nothing. I think the question that you want to ask yourself is everyone being an asset to the family? In fact, that's literally number 1 of the 10 commandments of Black economic power, is that if you want to build a wealthy family, every family member must be trained to be an asset, and this training must occur from birth. You should not have anybody sort of mentally seeing themselves as someone who's allowed to simply be a freeloader, where everybody owes me something and I owe the world nothing. Or like even little things like, I forgot what it was. There was something I know what it was. I was talking about this. These are all financial lessons. Remember, the world gives you the best financial lessons ever. Roger, do anybody remember Roger from Zap? I talked about this not too long ago. Roger from Zap. My wife was, we saw this really great interview he did with Donnie, what's his face, from Video Soul, and he was doing his whole computer love thing, and it sounded really cool. And so does anybody know how he died? Well, Roger from Zap died. He had a business with his brother Larry. His brother Larry, I guess, got upset. Larry borrowed money from him. Larry was wrapped up in drugs. Larry didn't want to pay him back. And Larry ended up shooting Roger and killing him, right? And I said, this is such an interesting example of financial trauma, as well as a lot of other factors, that we've talked about in class, right? One is drugs. I've talked about how drugs are the worst thing that ever happened in the Black community. If you're smart, you'll just teach your kids, stay away from it as much as possible. But then 2, there is the whole idea that he borrowed money from him and then somehow felt like it wasn't his job to pay him back, right? That's a form of financial trauma that affects how much you can trust other people, right? So what eventually happens is you create this toxic culture because your own relative stole from you, your own brother stole from you. He borrowed money, promised he was going to pay it back, and didn't pay it back. So it's like somebody coming up with a gun on the street and taking your wallet from you, right? So your own sibling stole from you. So what that does is it creates a toxic space where people say, see, that's why I don't loan money to relatives. And that's completely the opposite of what financially healthy families are able to do. In financially healthy, well-to-do families, they say, oh, I love loaning money to relatives because I can help them go to the next level, and they always pay me back because in our family, we have a code of behavior and a code of conduct where we don't just borrow money from each other and not pay each other back. We operate with a level of integrity. So anybody who borrows money from someone that you allegedly love and doesn't feel any obligation to pay them back, doesn't even call and say, gosh, I don't have your money, but I promise you I'm going to get it. I'm doing everything I can. It's going to be a little late, but the money's coming, I promise, right? Just that sort of energy, that makes me wonder, like, do you really even love or respect the person that you borrow money from? How can you borrow that money, not pay it back, have no remorse, and just move on as if nothing happened? Oh, I get it. You are okay with the idea that you're a liability to your loved ones, you're a burden for other people, but you're not expecting, you wouldn't expect them to be able to come to you and be a burden on you, right? You're not expecting to fill the void that you're creating. You're creating a hole. You're willing to create a liability, but you're not bringing an asset. And one thing about a balanced portfolio or balanced books or whatever, balanced accounting, is that every liability must be matched with an asset. And when the liabilities exceed the assets, that's when you have a failing institution. Why do you think Silicon Valley Bank no longer exists? Well, because the liabilities exceeded the assets. FTX does not exist as an entity because the liabilities exceeded the assets. Do you get what I'm saying? So in your family, when the family as an economic entity will fail if the liabilities exceed the assets. The liabilities and the assets must match one another. So when you're talking about how you sort of view each other financially, and again, this is all, I lay all this out in my book. That again, that's the first commandment literally was always be an asset to your family. And this is something that has to be taught to kids as a core value when they're young. So how does that work out long term? So that means that so the kid who sees himself as an asset to the family is always thinking, how can I help out? What can I do? I don't have any money, but I can work. I can pick grandma up from her doctor's appointments. Like what can I do? Right? That's the opposite of the kid who's always showing up with their hand out, saying, "Mama, mama, mama, please, 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 give me." Right? Or you owe me, or get mad at you because you won't give them something that they never earned in the first place. Right? Or the perpetual victim. Everybody's doing me wrong, and all this other nonsense. Right? What else does that do? A child who thinks of himself as an asset to the family is going to go out into the world and want to be successful on behalf of the family and bring that back to the family. They take pride. I will tell you, I take tremendous pride in knowing that I paid off my parents' house. My father's dream was to have his house paid off before he passed. I said, let's get it done. He wanted a new truck. I said, let's go get you a truck and we're going to get it with cash. So you don't even have a car note. Right? My mother wanted to go on vacation. Mama, where you want to go? Hey, what can I do for you, Mama? Anything I can. Every time I talk to my parents, my first question is there anything I can do? Anything you need? Right? And that is because as a kid, I kind of just bought into this idea, like we're a team. It's like a basketball team. Like you want to help your team score points. Right? So what else does it do when your child is raised to believe that they're an asset to the family? Well, it creates an easier space for you to do things like start businesses together. You have three siblings that all want to be assets to the family. They all trust each other. They all love each other. They all know they're going to come through for each other. They're not financially traumatizing each other. Well, it's much easier for them to get together and say, okay, well, I got $20,000 saved up. I'll pour it into the business. Let's make this thing happen, right? Because you don't have to overcome this idea of wondering if your loved one is going to steal from you or rip you off or do something irresponsible with the family resources. So being an asset to the family, I think, plays a big part in this. It's critical to consider these ideas, because if you don't, then what will happen is you'll fall into the trap that I saw happen to someone that I actually cared about, where her son was never raised to see himself as an asset. He was always a burden, always a liability, because he was kind of sad and pathetic and always felt like the world owed him something. So his single mother, who was the strong Black woman who took care of everybody, always took care of his financial problems. Anytime he had a problem, she took care of it. And this continued until he was 20, 30, 40, and eventually 50 years old. So now he's 50 years old. His mother's old and tired, and he's coming to the house borrowing money. He's not, she needs her grass cut. She has to call the guy down the street because her son won't do it. Or when she has a financial problem, she has nobody she can depend on. And that's how they died. They died like they both he died. I think she died, and then he died shortly afterward. And it was kind of sad because you sort of saw this weird codependence that never ever came to an end, because he was never led to understand that his job as a man was to be an asset in the lives of the people that he's around. So the last thing I'll lay out here, and again, I'm being a little bit opinionated when I say this, so forgive me if it offends anybody. But one of the things I did say to our son is, I said, your measurement as a man, in my view, should come down to simple things you can ask yourself. And a question I would ask myself as a man is, the people that I'm around, are their lives better or worse because I was there? A man who is irresponsible and reckless with his behavior or whatever, and not accountable, can ruin the lives of a lot of people, ruin the lives of his children, ruin the lives of women, ruin the lives of his friends, etc. Right? You're on drugs, you're doing silly things, you're not responsible, right? You can do a lot of damage. A man who's really on his mission, on his purpose, who understands his power and wants to harness his power in a beneficial way, can be a huge asset. He can boost you up emotionally, he can boost you financially, he can make sure you're well protected, he makes sure that your life is better than it would have been otherwise. I think that's the measuring stick, right? I think that's sort of a values-based way of looking at what it takes to create a financially secure family. If everybody, imagine a family of 5 where everybody thinks that way. Everybody says, I'm loyal to the family. I want to be an asset. I'm going to make myself the best person I can be so I can show up in my best form to be the best asset I can be. And everything I accomplish, I'm going to pour that right back into this entity called a family. Well, a family like that cannot fail. They cannot fail. They're not going to be on welfare. They're not going to be all broken up and busted up. They're not going to be overtly traumatized. They're going to be successful. They're going to thrive. And retirement becomes a pleasurable experience because you, as a senior citizen, know that these young people you poured into all 20 or 30 years are all now pouring back into you. They're all making sure mama is good. They're making sure daddy gets to the doctor. They're making sure that the house note is paid off. Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't follow into this culture that's out here. A lot of these problems that I saw where families can't retire because they're taking care of adult children, it comes from lazy kids and irresponsible parents who don't really scratch that. I don't want to be mean, because some of you may be in this state and I don't want to make you feel bad. So let me take that back. It comes from us not being at our best and not raising children to be at their best. And the consequences can be absolutely devastating financially. Also, in terms of succession, passing your wealth on to your children. If you don't raise them with certain values in a certain way, then you might as well stop working right now, because what's going to happen is when you leave them all that money that you worked your butt off to acquire, they're just going to waste it and blow it anyway. A person has to have a specific mindset to even know what it means to protect resources. Just like somebody that's growing a flower in a garden has to have a mindset to water that plant a certain way and to feed that plant and love that plant and nurture that plant. If the mindset's not there, if it's somebody who's just going to step on flowers and destroy everything, then it doesn't matter what work you put into it. It's all going to go away anyway. All right, so let me answer a few more of your questions. Have you chosen the day for the All Black National Convention? Maurice, we're almost there. The team is going to let me know this week where our venue is exactly. We're going to be in Atlanta. That much we know. Sometimes we end up waiting a little bit, but thank you for asking that question. If you want to learn more about the convention for this year, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. Also, I want to mention that for this year's convention, we want to bring in speakers and panelists that are from the audience. So we're actually going to send out a request for proposals. If you have an idea of topics you'd like to cover or panels that you think you can be on or things like that, We're going to give everybody a chance to kind of come in because we're not really into, going and recruiting celebrities and mainstream people. We want people that have good ideas, that care about the community, that want to put Black people first. So that's how we're going to move things. That's one of the adjustments for this year. We're not into the big names and all that. We can make you a big name. We reach 1 million people a week, so we can do that part. We just want you to come with ideas that are going to be beneficial to Black people. All right, so let's see here. Please give us the name of the health factors book you read. Oh gosh, Gwen, I'm going to find it. I don't have it with me. My wife had me download it. I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could remember. I'll find out, Gwen. I apologize. I don't have it in front of me. Let's see. Jamal says Schrodinger was that company you recommended the other day. Schrodinger. Maybe I did. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, I put a list of what Dr. Boyce is buying. That may have been one of the companies on that list. I do the research and I find the companies, and some of them I invest in myself, some of them I don't, but these are all companies I would invest in. Sometimes you just deplete your capital and you don't have other things to invest in. But yeah, I think that was one of them. So if you just log in, go to your login and you should be able to find it there under what Dr. Boyce is buying, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. All right, so let's see. Any suggestions on emerging market ETFs? There's so many of them. You can, if you type in emerging markets and just search for that in your Robinhood app, you can find ETFs, or you can actually Google emerging market ETFs. There's so many out there. Emerging markets are good. Emerging markets are like smaller countries, third world countries, things like that. Those are good places to invest now because I believe that as the economy recovers, a lot of that wealth is going to rise. What do you think about hydrogen fuel to invest? Blaine, I never thought about hydrogen much. I don't think I have any investments in that space. I can't actually construct a unique thought on hydrogen right now, just because it's so far out of my consciousness. I have to think about that. So sorry about that. I have nothing to say. Terrence, what are your thoughts on the company Hypercharge Networks Corp, HCNWF? Okay. If you have a certain stock you want me to look up, just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and leave the stock, and then I can look it up. And if you did that for last week and I didn't get a chance to get to it this week, just know I'll get to it next week. But yeah, if you just leave it in there, I can look it up for you. Let's see here. You should check out the show Billions since you like Succession. Yes, I watch Billions too. I know all about that show. It's a great show. Is there a specific time of day you find stocks at their lowest or best time of day to invest? I don't think there's any specific time of day. It can, they can go up or down at any time of the day. Let's see here. When will we be able to make hotel reservations for the A, B, and C? As soon as we lock down the venue, James, and I'll let you know that soon. Make sure you're on our email list and stuff like that. And if you're not, one way to get on the list very easily and get a lot of free information as well is if you go to boycewatkins.com, I have a list of AI stocks that you can take a look at that I think are going to do well in the future because of this whole AI trend. It's the beginning of a really interesting arms race, the whole AI thing. And if you get that list, then you put in your email and then I'll send you some stuff. And these are the lists that we let people know what we have going on and stuff like that. And we'll market it extensively once the venue gets locked in. So let's see here. We need to get back to our cultural roots. I agree. Do you consider Forex a good skill to know going forward? I don't really necessarily love Forex investing. I don't hate it. It's just not, it's not a stock market investing is an easy way to make money because you can set it and forget it. And it's proven, right? Over history, like it's not a zero-sum game. Like Forex is a little bit like if I win, you have to lose. Somebody loses when I win. Somebody wins when I lose. In the stock market investing, it doesn't have to be that way. Everybody can win. And you can win with very basic buy and hold strategies. Like Warren Buffett explains it all the time. He shows how, what was that investment? The investment was $142 that he made in 1940. That's now worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars right now. It's going to be like $6 million by the year 2030. So ultimately, stock market investing is just a little more stable, consistent, and makes sense. It's simpler. Forex is a little bit like a wild, wild west. It's an important market. It's a necessary market. It's one of the biggest, most liquid markets out here. But it's not so simple to make money. And I don't care what anybody tells you. Don't ever walk into Forex thinking, oh, everybody can make money, or it's just easy. Just do my simple trading strategies and all that. You'll just get frustrated. But if you are into that kind of thing and you want to learn it, I think it's worth learning. I think before digging into Forex, though, I would learn stock market investing and then stock options. I think stock options are the second most fun category to invest in. All right. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to bounce on out, guys. It was great talking to you. I hope this conversation was helpful. Just a reminder, if you want to join us in Houston, I'll be in Houston April 21st for a 2-day Black Wealth Boot Camp. You can find out about that at boycewatkins.com. Also, that list of AI stocks is at my website at boycewatkins.com. And if you want to get the new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, it is available. Just get it off Amazon. Amazon will deliver it like overnight, and don't worry about ordering directly from me. You can get it on Amazon. My team will take about a week, to be honest with you. We can't keep up with Amazon. We try, but it's hard. But if you go to Amazon, just punch it in, and it'll get to your house like tomorrow or something. So take care, guys, and I hope you have a great day. And don't forget the stock options masterclass starts on Thursday. And I am going to move the date, though, a couple of days because of my father's medical condition. But I will definitely deliver, and we will have a great time, and you will learn a lot. So feel free to, if you'd like to join that, that's also at my website, boycewatkins.com. So have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you.